Hi, welcome to Marlene at Home, and I'm Marlene from the Carroll County Public Library North Carroll branch, and thanks for joining me. This episode is part 2 of My Other Life, a Pastor's Wife. I talked last week about the 18 years we spent at our first church and how Paul became a pastor, but kind of through the back door, not something he ever was aspiring to do. But after 18 years, he felt like he had given it his best and it was time to move on to other challenges. I was not thrilled by that news. I'm not a great one for change, and I've told other people many times, I could show you the skid marks in Glen Rock area on the highway, the road over there, off of 83, where I was dragging my feet and telling the Lord, I can't do this. I can't leave my church family, my friends, it had grown from a very small group of people to very large size, multiple services, and we lived through a struggling church scenario, and I loved it when it was healthy and growing and it was the place everybody wanted to be. And so it doesn't mean it was easy, but I just love that healthy church life. My husband was ready for more challenges, and as I say, there is a spot in the road that has the skid marks where I was saying, Lord, I can't do this, I can't do this. But the Lord brought us to Carroll County, Maryland, and we served at a church here in the Carroll County for almost 25 years. And so before I came, one of my friends, a pastor's wife, an older lady, said to me, now Marlene, I don't want you to go to the next church and do everything that you did at the first church. I would like you to take a year off of all the activities you've always enjoyed doing and just get your family settled, get your kids settled, and look for, are there other areas, things you've never done before that you'd like to try. Just don't jump like, oh, I do this, I do that, That was the hardest thing for me, because I'm sure they thought as the new pastor, like, well, that woman isn't involved at all. Maybe they didn't think it, but I always thought it to myself. I always felt it just wasn't me. And so I was very happy when that year. I was glad that Roxy gave me that information, and that I did try things I had never done before, and that was very good. And I gave up some things that I had always done. After many years in the nursery, and my children now being elementary, middle school age, I didn't do as much in the nursery at the second church as I did. It's kind of like, oh, there's nobody in the nursery. Oh, can the pastor's wife do it? I always have a friend that used to sing a little song about, Lord, make me a servant humble and meek. Lord, let me serve in the nursery each week. So thank you, Judy, for Judy Paulette for that song. I've never forgotten it. But anyway, after serving many times in a church nursery, at my second church, as my kids got older, I became more involved in things related to their age, youth group and children ministries and that kind of thing, and new things. And so I was thankful for that. I'm going to not trust my memory, and I jotted a few notes down. Not to expect the same things from the last church. Although I did once hear one of my favorite speakers, Warren Wiersbe, say, don't leave a church because you're unhappy with people, because when you go to the next church, the people there have the same exact dispositions and problems, but their faces and their names will be different. And I've never forgotten that. And there are times I look at a church and I'm like, oh, that's like Mrs. Smith at the last church, in good things. It's not negative. It can be, but more often than not, it's not. It's like, oh, that's the one that was like the grandmother to me at the last church, and now I have like a grandmother type at this church. So that was very wonderful and exciting. Some of the new things that I tried, I had never been on a decorating committee, and the church needed some refurbishing, and so there was a good-sized decorating committee, and they asked me to head it up, and I forget now the dimensions and the budget but it was a pretty extensive, nothing with the actual build of the building, but in the decorating and repainting and wallpapering in many, many rooms, and just giving it a fresh look. And things that you do in your home on a normal basis in a church sometimes don't happen maybe once every 30 years. And so Anyway, that was something very unique for me. Different community involvement for me, because as my kids got older and they were involved in school and community things, then I was as well. Ladies' Night Out, a monthly ministry that I had never experienced before and that I loved. And I can just envision this room and this room being overflowing with women many times for gatherings and events like that. So that's something I did monthly. There was worship team. Wasn't a worship team, didn't have worship bands, that kind of thing in our first era of our first church. But I played violin for a number of years in the worship team. Still continued in music, and I'd say 80% of what I did at the last church, maybe more, I don't know, but there were some things I dropped and there were some new things that I started to be involved with, which I wanted, which I wanted to say. I also began to leave the early attic look behind as time went on. Some at our first church, but more as I had my own home. And when we moved to Maryland, that was the first time we ever owned a home. We had always lived in a parsonage, so that was different and very unique and very wonderful. Someone, as I left Percy, and it's right over there in the bedroom, says something about I left my heart in this old town, and gives the name of the town and kind of a little drawing of buildings in that town. And so now my heart's in two places. But anyway, I remember when we were fairly new here, there was a little girl. I was leading a children's program. My husband was up on the platform introducing the evening. There was probably, 300 people there, maybe more. All the children that had been involved in Wednesday night children's clubs, and all the staff, and then all the parents, grandparents, friends that came. So it's a pretty full house. And then my husband's up there talking, and my older daughter, I think it was my older daughter, one of my daughters was friends of a little 5 or 6-year-old that my daughter was assisting in that class. And so anyway, my daughter and I were talking back a couple times, and this dear little 5 or 6-year-old Amanda, she leaned over and she said to me, because she knew that Paul was Carrie's dad, and she said to me, "Are you married to the pastor?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And she said, "Oh, what a boring life. I feel sorry for you." I just burst out laughing, and the next thing I know, Paul's introducing me to come up on the stage in front of all these people. But I've always remembered that, and I just want to tell you, I've lived in a parsonage, I lived in my own home, I've been a pastor's wife for 40 years. It has never been boring. There's been happy days and sorrowful days, but it's never been boring. And I still am, Amanda, if you see this, I'm sure you've never forgotten either. But anyway, that was one of the precious memories for me as a pastor's wife, that it hasn't been boring. I remember when my older daughter was in high school and she was running for some office. I get them all mixed up, but I don't know if it's class officer or student council or honor society, whatever. And I remember when she was making the signs, some of the kids wrote, "Vote for her, the minister's daughter, Carrie, her name, Carrie, the minister's daughter." And so even in community events and in schools, my kids were known by what their father did for a living. I don't know that any of you, that your kids are known as the English teacher's son. Maybe so, but anyway, that just struck me when I saw this hanging in the school on the walls at different places, that she was running for an office as Carrie, the minister's daughter. I love, as I've mentioned, always having people in my home. I do think it's funny, though, that I have some program that talks about decorating, when I can name so many people, even in my own branch, that are brilliant decorators. I don't think it's a decorating skill that attracts people to my home. I think it's just a gathering spot. I just love having people. I love having 2 people, 5 people, 50 people. I can't even tell you the most we've ever had. And when we looked for a home to buy, I said, I just need open spaces. I need to be able to get a lot of people. At our last home, a small rancher, we had that grand piano that was given to us in our living room. And I can remember Wednesday mornings teaching ladies' Bible study with ladies sitting underneath that piano. It was just packed. Where else could we go? We had people sitting. They were in the dining room. They were in the hallway. They were under the grand piano. So some fun memories. But anyway, I do laugh at when people think it's my decorating skills. No, I'll recommend some good decorators to you. Anyway, I've always said that the library, that was my job. Being a pastor's wife, that was my life. And that's how I felt. I would work all day, and I loved what I do at the library, did then and I do now. But I would run home to something else, a choir practice, a children's meeting, a ladies' event, caring for somebody that was ill, taking a meal somewhere. That really was the love of my life. And I just always felt like I've been a teammate with my husband, a helpmate, serving. When we were first married, when we had no idea where we were going and what we would be doing, we each engraved in one another's, had a jeweler engrave on inside our wedding bands, a verse to the other person, a Bible verse. And my verse that is in Paul's wedding band is Psalm 34:3. Oh, magnify the Lord with me and let us exalt his name together. And we have really tried to do that in our almost 50 years of marriage, whether we have been in ministry or whether we have been working like I do at the public library. But we do work together, and it's been funny to me to see how the Lord has brought new areas of service for us since we were using gifts that we never thought would be used in this way. Since we have been out of the ministry these last few years, Marlene at home, that's something we're both working on together. You don't see him, he's the cameraman behind the camera, but I couldn't do this if I didn't have him there. So I just want to end with something a little comical. I'll be back in a moment. Years ago, my very, very dearest friend, my roommate from college, gave me this little gift, and it's a printout. It says, Blueprint for the Ideal Preacher's Wife. So I'll try to include it on the video, but it's small, so I'm not sure you'll be able to see it. This is what each preacher's wife needs to have. A radar mind to know exactly where to reach husband at all times. An automatic mind to produce Bible study lessons, youth group lessons, assist wherever needed, the ladies group devotions, parties, socials, and clever ideas to keep up the husband's morale. Also, you need an escape valve to relieve tensions. You need hair that's half in fashion on the day and the other half in a motherly style. You need a file cabinet mind. 1, a miscellaneous file of all the information that husband is apt to forget. 2, the recipe file of 999 ways to prepare hamburger. And 3, information on child psychology, marriage problems, etc. You also need an ear with an automatic sifter to sort out information to repeat it from that which is to be confidential. A mouth that's always smiling and saying good things. And 4 arms, because you need to keep a neat, clean house at all times, the family neat, clean, and well-dressed, do all church work required, raise children to be intelligent and obedient. You need to have 1 eye in front for playing the piano. Now that's not me. I know that comes with a lot of pastors' wives, not me. My sister, yes. 1 eye in the back to see what your children are doing on the front pew. You need a figure that's not too glamorous and not too matronly, a body that's tireless. Your clothing needs to always be neat, but not too new, not too old, not too fancy, not too plain. And you need substantial feet to work, work, and work. Thank you for joining me today at Marlene at Home. I hope you enjoyed this segment and that you'll come back again. Here's a copy of the Blueprint for the Ideal Preacher's Wife from my best friend, my college roommate, who she herself was a pastor's wife for many, many years. So this is an hilarious view of being a preacher's wife or a pastor's wife, and Marlene and I have laughed about it many times throughout the years on different points. I would say, just know this is what God wants for you, and just be willing. I've had a wonderful life as a pastor's wife.